Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. This is our second conversation we are diving into this morning. And as we mentioned, it's all about Caye Caulker leading a cannabis legislation awareness campaign. This morning, we are joined by Ilya Rosado. He is a councillor representing the Caye Caulker Village Council. Also, one of the familiar faces you've been seeing for the better part of the past few weeks regarding this campaign being put out by Caye Caulker. Good morning, Councillor Rosado. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure having you, man.
Thank you for the invite.
I'm hoping that this morning's discussion will not only educate us, but perhaps give everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts and even ask questions as
For
well
sure.
to yourself regarding this movement coming out of Caye Caulker. Perhaps we can begin there, where the idea started and how it's going since then.
Well, I'm really at the point where I don't know how it got this far.
Did you
right?
think it would get this far?
No, not really. But I am a man who follows through, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But the background really was that I was really excited. I don't remember how many years ago when it was going to be, or they attempted to legalize it nationally, right? And then we had a petition that came out against it to stop everything, and everything went down to a halt. And then we were at this, or we still are at this stage where it's just 10 grams, and the law just as it stands makes no sense. I can hold 10 grams, but if I have 10 and a half, I'm in trouble, but I can't buy it from anywhere, but yet it's everywhere still. And then I got into politics in 2022 and started to learn about the law and everything like that, and eventually trying to solve all these problems and the issues that my community faces. And it always comes down to a lack of revenue. And with this, we could think about possibly having about $500,000 in additional revenue. And to put things in perspective, our main source of revenue is property tax. So we get nothing from the tourism revenue that we generate, right? Except for we count liquor license and then the property tax from the hotels and everything like that. But none of that stays here. We need revenue that stays on the island. And we don't get any part of the hotel tax, though we do work well with BTB as a council. So we get, for perspective, $5,000 a month from the government, and our staff payroll is $6,000 to $7,000 a week. So it's always trying to solve all these issues with education, infrastructure, and of course the sargassum issue, healthcare, handling emergencies. There's so much that we can see the need for, but we just can't get it done at the level that I would like to see. People are living without electricity, without water, and then they have to go back and get up in the morning and work at some of the prettiest resorts in the country.
How do you see this industry in Caye Caulker generating $500,000, I assume, annually for the council?
Well, we got that estimate off the Ministry of Home Affairs, and what we got that number based off of is actually the amount of cannabis that they seized, which amounted to about 800 kilograms in a year, and that has a street value of about $2 million. So if I make a conservative estimate and say that we get 25%, and we're talking about $500,000.
Now, one of the questions I hear people asking has to do with the structure, how it will work. What can you share or explain about how an industry would work on Caye Caulker?
Currently, as it stands, people always have the question about what is an industry in the first place, right? But the industry already exists. We just don't want to acknowledge it. That's the thing. And all it needs is we can start with following a model that the original draft legislation for a national level was done, but we have an even better opportunity here because now we can do it at a local level and have even more control. So what I mean is there's a strict check from the seed to the end product, which we don't have on the black market. We have strict ID checks. Now, things that we want to avoid, like smoking in public, become ticketable offenses. And these offenses, we charge them heavy fines, and then the council collects those fines. Anywhere that wants to apply for a license can't be near a place like a library, a church, or a school, things like that. But I envision most of the industry to be away from the main tourism sector. And what I'd like to see is the same thing resorts do in other areas where you go in, there's a piece of property that they can buy up, and there's this road that's undeveloped. We have people who have properties there, but the company will come in and the developer will pay for BEL and BWS, and they will carry that cost and financing for the first part to be able to put in that infrastructure. So the same thing we do with an area that needs that development, and we create one or two streets where we have this cultivation taking place, and then also
on the island.
Yes, it has to be on the island.
Yeah.
And it also has to be indoors because it will, just like in other areas such as free zone where there are specific zones where only this can happen in this specific place, we want to have, if it is successful, then just this right here in the island, from the seed to the final product, to be an industry that we can rely on apart from fisheries, apart from tourism.
So my understanding then it would be essentially a portion of the island that would benefit from the legalization of marijuana, because you're saying that if it goes through successfully, there would still be a ticketing system where you can't necessarily walk around and freely smoke marijuana or
definitely not,
consume marijuana anywhere on the island. And so a specific area would be designated for the production of it and usage of it.
Yes, but then the entire island would benefit from the taxation of the revenue that they generate. So what I'm looking for is revenue to continue the development of the entire community. But we need to have this we need to implement this in a responsible and reasonable way, right? And if we can acknowledge that this already exists, there's already a market, we just need to make sure that we look at it, we regulate it, we apply rules that are not being applied, and then we use that lost revenue and we take it for something positive. And what I'd like to see, if we roll this out for the first 3 years, I'd like to see that revenue go back directly to the two schools that we have on the island, because both of them need new buildings, and they've been actually lobbying to have reconstruction. So we don't even have the funds to be able to assist them. So for the first 3 years, give that money back to the primary school, the high school, have them rebuild their schools. Afterwards, then we divide it into different sectors of importance. We have, of course, the medical field, then education, then the sargassum, and of course, one of the things that are most important to me, because it affects everyone, are the roads and infrastructure. We can do so much, but we have so little resources. We need to do so much, but we have so little resources. And this is what it comes down to.
What sort of mechanism would have to be in place for industry stakeholders to agree or buy into giving or surrendering such a large a portion of their revenue to the council outside of taxed?
Well, it will be taxed. It will be in the law, as it's, because the referendum specifically states, if it passes, there is a portion that will go directly for the benefit of Caye Caulker. And at that point, if we make it to that point, then when we're at the negotiating table, what I want to do is to, of course, lobby for as much as I could get from that taxation. But the taxation itself is where we think about of course, money going to the government, but the referendum specifically states a portion going directly to the benefit of Caye Caulker.
How do you view the fact that the referendum comes ahead of legislation, comes ahead of policies that are in place, in that would have to come after the decision is taken? And I understand it's the nature of it. Why have legislation? We even reach a consensus through a referendum. But how do you view that?
Well, in this case, I sort of found like a loophole, right?
Yeah.
And this is the only chance in history any community will ever have in this country to make this choice, right? That loophole is sealed. That Ziploc bag is.
And I don't think that
right?
opportunity will present itself again.
Yes. So I hope that my community understands that I'm doing this to be able to assist them. I don't really like seeing the suffering. We can change this, and it's really important to me. And for me, it's a sacrifice of self, because I know a lot of people don't like it. But there is no logical reason to be against it. All the fear and everything like that is purely based on either misinformation or fear. And I mean, that's all right. We need to have this discussion. It just needs to be healthy. That's all. And if we think about the other places that have done this, then all the doom and gloom, like what they're essentially saying is that all that doom and gloom has never happened in any other state or city that has done this, but it will happen here specifically this one time. And that does not follow logically. And if you look at the evidence, it seems that we can make something wonderful out of this market that already exists. We just need to be able to acknowledge it. But in summary, really, what we're thinking about is this, where people have concerns about them saying, well, there will be a spike in usage and everything like that. But we had a test case already when we were allowed 10 grams. There was not a spike in usage. We already have a national test case. So why should there be a spike in usage if it's out in the open? And when what studies show in other cities and states and countries that have done this, we might even see a reduction in usage, because the novelty of doing something that is rebellious
Forbidden.
now wears off, and that's a sort of psychological aspect. But I'm not really depending on that too much. What I do understand about these types of industries is that, unlike tourism, there's a part of it the year where it's booming, it's wonderful, and then it's very slow in another part of the year. We go through this every year. But with things like alcohol, cigarettes, and then eventually, even if this doesn't pass, we'll get to the point where it will be here. It's just a matter of time. These are inelastic industries that there's always a demand, unlike tourism.
What has the support been like from the Ministry of New Growth Industries? We know that Minister Karim Musa has expressed interest in this industry before. Since then, it's sort of been shelved because of some of the same challenges that you're experiencing at this time. But now that you've discovered a loophole to actually have a referendum successfully, what has his response been? Have you spoken to him directly?
Yes, I actually met him after I had gotten the signatures and met with the Governor General. And then he had some time and was able to offer me some advice and everything like that. And that's when I actually met him in person for the first time. And he's been very helpful in terms of finding data that is relevant to this country. in terms of security and seizures and how much we can estimate flowing through the black market. And that's the thing, is that we have data for other countries, but because it's never done here before, then when we try to see if we can do studies because it's a black market, then no one really wants to admit to everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where there's a lot of unknowns that need to be identified, but that doesn't mean that we can't approach this, because we have to. It comes down to, there's this substance that exists and it's being used, and you can have it for 10 grams, but you can't buy it anywhere, but it's available everywhere. What are we doing? There's no logic to this. That law, there's no logic in that law, and we have to be able to see this. We just need to be able to get to a point where we can see that these laws are not logical, and then we move on from there.
How much of a challenge to your campaign is the church's Hope Not Dope campaign?
That was expected, but some of the local pastors are actually people I respect very much, and I hope to be able to work with them in the future on other projects, and I hope they understand that I'm doing this because I want to assist people, and I wish in this case I could agree with them, but then we'd both be wrong. So it's going to be a challenge, but that doesn't mean that it's something that we should back away from discussing, so long as we can do so respectfully. And I hope we can have healthy discourse within the community. I hope this continues. I hope we can live up to the name La Isla Cariñosa.
Yeah. What are you hearing is their primary concern, and how do you respond?
That the crime will go up. Well, studies show that that's not the case. That usage will go up. Well, we've had the 10 grams. Usage did not spike, so that is not the case. That it will be available more readily to the youth. Well, I want the legal age to be 21. I want there to be strict ID checks. In the black market, there's no ID checks. You can get this at any age, as long as the person who's selling it doesn't have any scruples or conscience, right? So their concerns are also the concerns that I have, and I want to change. But our method of approaching it is either we acknowledge it or we ignore it. And I want to acknowledge it and have sensible regulations, because it's already, at the end of the day, after October 8th, you still can have your 10 grams, whatever happens, right? All we're doing is saying, well, look at this market. This is potential revenue. I can use this to rebuild the schools. Can we please do this? It just makes sense if we're not looking at it from a fear aspect.
Yeah.
I think, well, one of the points I remember being raised when this possible legalization for marijuana for the entire country was a bigger deal, was how this could potentially impact the financial institutions when it comes to maybe even laundering in some cases.
Indeed.
Is this something that we are still looking at a possibility of things that we may have to address should this be successful at the referendum level?
This is an excellent point, because it is a valid concern that we have to think about, where we have to look at how other countries have addressed this, right? And then it almost always starts out as a cash-only industry, right? So that means
so how do you track that?
It's going to be, in terms of tracking, we have to make sure that we label everything, and we have to make sure that every product that comes out from the seed to the end product is tagged, is tested for safety, and also inventoried, so that we can have an idea of how much product is actually moving, so people can't say, hey, we have this cash, but here's all this stuff that we sold and some of the cash is missing. So we have this technology. Grocery stores have similar systems that we can use to track. We could just make a supply chain.
I also think of the investment that will be needed, though, to test to ensure that it's safe, what's coming in the
Definitely.
country, and where that capital will come from. Because as you mentioned, the Caye Caulker Council at this point don't have the monies that they need to invest in certain projects that they would like. So where does that capital come from when this industry is only in Caye Caulker? Does the central government supply this for Caye Caulker to
Or
ensure that they,
investors, maybe?
or
There are
investors?
potential investors that will build the industry.
So we have, cannabis is a really funny thing because we already have businesses that are established, business owners that are established in Caye Caulker that are already interested.
Okay.
But of course, it's not something that they want to approach because it's
At least
still-
publicly, as yet.
right, at
Yeah.
this stage, right? So the potential for investment is there.
Okay.
But I foresee it as being slow to start. Then there's eventually going to be like what happens in other countries and states that do this is a green boom, as they say, and it's certainly possible, but it's also not going to be huge because we're talking about a small community. So it's an excellent place for us to manage with strict control and also see how it will serve as an example for the rest of the country. And we have to come to terms with the fact that this is happening globally and it will happen here eventually. I might not be the one, but I may be the spark that eventually leads to this point at some other time in the future, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen at some point.
All right. Well, it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and
Thank you.
educating us on why this campaign and this project, this initiative really is important to yourself and to some of the residents at Caye Caulker as well. We appreciate the initiative and we wish you guys all the best. We'll definitely be following this one for sure.
I appreciate it.
All right. We take another quick break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, the conversation switches into KHMH celebrating excellence for Pharmacy Week.